Let's begin, shall we?
Begin what exactly?
Studying for midterms, of course.
Dun dun dun!
Whoa, look out! I'll be making this period a high-speed enhanced midterm study hall!
I'm getting dizzy.
My doubles will provide special one-on-one attention, drilling everyone individually on areas where you need improvement most.
Man, this is balls. You seriously gotta wear a different headband for each subject. Give me a break, man! Naruto's not even on the test!
Look at him go! Is it just me, or is he getting faster? I mean, 6 doubles for Japanese, 8 doubles for math, 3 for social studies, 4 for science, 4 for English, 1 for Naruto. A Koro sensei for each of us. And not that long ago, he was doing well to split himself up into 4 or 5.
Knife down, Karma! No sneak attacks during study hall! This is very difficult, so try not to disrupt my concentration!
Doesn't all this spread you a little bit thin, sir? I mean, just thinking about it makes me feel tired.
No worries there. I have a double outside on R&R duty.
How does that help? He's been leveling up like crazy these days. I wonder, is he just prepping to destroy the Earth or what? Any way you slice it, if you're an assassin, he's a tricky target.
There. Are you starting to wrap your head around the material, Nagisa?
Yes, sir.
Name all the villages. Oh, okay, I've got a shot at that one. Name all the elemental style of jutsu. Oh, okay, I guess I could sort of do that one. Okay, now name all the hand signs. Oh god, what have I done?
And if you're facing midterms, he's the best damn teacher you could ask for.
Okay, I know that different eye colors and hair color in anime mean different things. But what the fuck does blue hair and blue eyes mean? Because I'm struggling to remember the last time I saw a blue-haired anime character that we know about. I'm trying to think. How many blue-haired anime characters do I know? Not many, if any. Like, seriously. How many do we know? Like, fuck all. What does blue symbolize? Does it symbolize chill as all hell? Because it would feel about right. Or is that green? No, green would probably be something else. Blue is probably chill as all hell. Yeah, that's probably it. Chill. That's why we don't see the chill people. They're too busy chilling. Okay. According to Google, characters with blue hair range from quiet to calm to cold and calculating. These corresponding to still water and freezing temperatures respectively. There was a Nagisa Shengetsu from Ultra Despair Girls. Right. Yes, there was. And he was very calculating. No wonder my hair got darker as I got more evil. My hair used to be blonde because I was filled with hope like Naruto. And then as I became more evil, it just became darker. Never seen that anime. What color hair was, what was his name? Kabuto from Naruto? That hidden leaf student with the glasses who eventually ended up joining Orochimaru. Was he silver? Was he blue? White? Oh, fuck me. See, I'm not even remembering the colors right. Jesus. Are you into sport, Anime Kuma? Man, I'm way behind on anime. I wouldn't waste it on sport anime. Still haven't seen Dragon Ball Z Super!
Consider this deceptively simple cube. If I wish to align the colors quickly and intuitively, what might be the best way to go about it? Any ideas?
Corners?
The answer? Yeah. Pry them apart and reassemble.
Is that your way of saying that you can never solve complex problems in real life, which is why you're a principal instead of a business leader that's actually successful, rich, and able to do whatever he wants in life, so you have to exert your power over a much smaller controlled environment because you're pathetic? Or am I just overanalyzing the situation? Plus your dick is small.
It's as easy as that. Why Koro-sensei? It's an honor.
Yeah?
Apparently this gentleman is supposed to be the principal here.
Believe me, he is, which also makes him our boss.
Yeah! So good of you to come all this way, sir! Any chance we could discuss a teensy little hike in salary? If I'm not being too forward, of course. I've added a few extra versions of myself to help with the workload.
Forgive me for not visiting sooner. I meant to pay my respects before now, but one gets sidetracked. Mr. Karasuma and the Ministry of Defense have painted quite the vivid picture of you. Yes, vivid indeed, though I don't pretend to understand the situation in every particular. Nor do I feel especially qualified to comment. However, I will say this, if I may be so bold. You seem to be torn between embracing the role of savior or villain.
Savior? Villain?
But no matter. Such things aren't for men like myself to resolve. I'm hardly in a position to save the world. That job I must leave to hands more capable. So, barring harm to my school, your assassins may deal with you as they will. I've been given plenty of incentive to turn a blind eye.
Thank you for your cooperation.
That's a very reasonable attitude, Principal. I find that quite attractive in a man.
You flatter me, madam. That said, though I'm happy to give you carte blanche to do what's necessary, I must think of the future should the Earth survive. In other words, what becomes of my school if Koro-sensei is assassinated? Not to put too fine a point on it, but E-Class must continue to serve its function in the grand scheme of things.
Interesting. So rock-bottom grades and students with zero prospects serve a function, do they?
Oh, yes. Are you familiar with the so-called worker ant theory? It tells us that in any group, 20% will work hard, 20% will be idle, and the remaining 60% will fall somewhere in between. Now, imagine a group without a middle ground, where hard workers comprise 95% of the population and layabouts only 5. If the lazy worker ants are stigmatized, the ratio is perfectly feasible. Those who under normal circumstances fall into the average category better themselves to avoid being associated with the ostracized class.
Very logical. And of course, unless the 5% is kept down, the incentive for the other 95 disappears.
Just today, I received an alarming complaint from a D-class teacher. It seems a student of yours glared threateningly at 2 upperclassmen, such that the upperclassmen feared for their lives. I have no doubt the confidence to do so stems from their attempts to assassinate you, and perhaps that's to be expected. The issue, though, is that an E-class student dared to defy his better. Obviously, I cannot let such insolence stand. As his teachers, you are expected to remind the student in question of his place. Oh, and Koro-sensei, you have 1 second to solve this puzzle.
What? You just sprayed this on me out of the blue? Whoa!
What the hell is going on?
Your speed certainly lives up to the hype. I can see why most attempts on your life would be an exercise in futility. But bear in mind, my friend, in the grand scheme of things, there are many problems for which speed is of no use at all. Now, if you'll kindly excuse me. Oh. Hi there. I look forward to your midterm results. Best of luck to you.
So, in his theory of how society functions, you're incentivizing people to assimilate to your structure so they don't get punished. So you're pretty much working off the old Roman, what was it called? When a group does something wrong, they draw straws, and 1 man out of every group of 10 is beaten to death, and it could be any one of them. And that keeps the rest in line. So if anyone wants to do something like an uprising, their fellow soldiers will probably beat them to death sooner rather than later, because anyone could die as punishment for, you know, breaking the rules. Watching an anime. You're cute.
I need some help on something soon.
Well, come a bit later. I'll visit you. So fair enough, I understand that mode of incentivization, but out of the 5% that you're pinning down at the bottom of society, what happens if one out of those 5% is, say, the 1 or 2% of psychopaths in society, and you're unlucky enough to have a high-functioning psychopath who just so happens to be a delinquent in the education system because he's actually bored with education, not actually being unable to understand things, and you've just pissed this person off. You've made him hate society, and he wants revenge, or she wants revenge, because, as we know, women are just as vicious as men. What happens then? You've just created a very dangerous scenario. What happens in that situation? What are you going to do? What are you going to do if you have a high-functioning psychopath that hates 95% of society? I'll tell you what you get. You get a serial killer.
Best of luck, the guy says. And just like that, I revert from assassin back to an E-class nobody.
As a target, Koro-sensei is practically invincible. Amateur and professional assassins alike have their work cut out trying to off him. But as a teacher, he's vulnerable to the whims of people higher up on the food chain. People like Kanukigaoka Academy Principal, Gakuo Asano. A shrewd man who in the first decade of his tenure single-handedly hoisted this school to top-tier status. Essentially, if you teach here, there's no getting around his personal vision of order. That goes for us and for you.
Good morning, everyone! As you might guess, today I thought I'd make even more of me!
This is getting ridiculous.
Thinking caps on, let's begin!
Even the after images are getting sloppy.
It's like he's turning into a parody of himself.
Hey, Koro-sensei? No offense, but isn't this gonna wear you out?
Wear me out? Pshaw!
E-Class must continue to serve its function in the grand scheme of things.
Look at the poor guy. He's totally down for the count.
I say we try our luck.
Not that I don't appreciate it, but why is he teaching us so hard anyways?
To get those test scores up. Why else? If I do that...
Koro-sensei! We owe it all to you, Koro-sensei. Thank you. I'll never try to kill you again.
Oh,
I want to kill myself.
I need help with my grades too.
I'll never have to worry about you trying to kill me again. It'll be sheer bliss.
I mean, the whole helping us study thing is nice and all.
But the reward money we get for assassinating him is nothing to sneeze at.
Let's face it, who needs to ace a midterm when you've got that kind of cash tucked away in your bank account?
Money isn't everything, people!
It's actually kind of funny. You're giving students that have no formal education around finance a lump of cash. And what typically happens when people that don't have any form of, financial education get a large sum of money? Well, take a look at any lotto winners. They typically end up poorer than they were before they won the lotto because they spend it on a lot of things. They get into heavy debt, which they later can't pay back, and that just keeps accruing interest upon interest, and then they end up being bankrupt. That in itself is an incentivization which just gets taken back. I mean, the whole system structure in the school is absolutely fucked. And it in no way creates a better society because those 95% of students, as you've seen, are not performing any better. I mean, yeah, they're performing better test scores, but as human beings, they've just become horrible. They're just perpetuating the same cycle of sociopathy as the principal. Monkey see, monkey do. They're just soulless slaves. And it's like, oh, that's how the system works. The guy on top shits on me, I shit on the person below me. That's no way to make a high-functioning society. That's a dystopia at its very core. But then again, we are watching an anime about killing an octopus that destroyed the moon, so let's not dive in too deep, eh?
Oh, come on, you gotta cut us some slack here. We're the in-class. Yeah, assassination we can strive for, but academics? Seriously, why bother?
I see. So that's how it is then.
Hmm? How what is, sir?
Do you know what I think? I don't think you appreciate what it means to be an assassin. Everyone, schoolyard, now!
It's kind of a really curious thing that he's done. All these kids don't actually believe in themselves, and by giving them a shared goal and giving them something to actually work towards, they're increasing their proficiency in combat and, you know, developing a skill for which they're not being judged for. And they actually have something for themselves that the other students don't have. And they seem to have a sense of pride and unity. I mean, you don't see these students beating each other up, do you? I mean, they did in the first 2 episodes, but they're not now. I mean, E-Class is actually better functioning than the rest of the school. What if the whole point of this is to actually prove a point by taking the bottom of the society which were thrown away as useless and proving that they can actually be used and taught to become a lot better than everyone else, so people don't just keep throwing people away and discarding them thinking that they're useless. Everyone has a use, but if you standardize something, like, say for example you have an examination and you've got, say, an elephant, a monkey, I don't know, a sheep and a dog, and you said the exam is to climb up that tree. What kind of fucking exam is that? That's what the standardized school system is. It's giving everyone the same test. Of course it's not going to work. Not everyone is built the same way. Everyone has their own talents, everyone has their own interests, and everyone has their own background. It's by finding what the person's talents and interests are and finding a way to align them that you get the most out of a person, which is what Kuro-sensei is doing. What the rest of society does is standardize education and promote rote learning, which isn't actually learning, it's memorization. You don't learn how something is done, you just learn how to answer the question. That's not education. That's the equivalent of me creating a computer program to go through an algorithm. It's a set of if statements. That's all it is. It's not learning. Learning is when you know how something works and you can actually create using it. Memorizing is what they do in the education system, which is why a majority of society are idiots. But anyway, what the fuck would I know? Maybe that's the message of this anime. In E-Class, they're actually getting an education to think outside the box, whereas everyone else is forced to think within the box. And then these kids are going to get work and realize that there is no fucking box. And that money and status isn't the pursuit of happiness that everyone thinks it is. But then again, we're getting a little deep here. Maybe we should just go back to trying to stab a big yellow octopus man that's running a classroom.
What's his deal, making us all stand out here like a bunch of goobers?
I don't know. Maybe something we said put him in a mood.
All right, children. Love or hate the E-Class system, as a remedial process, it can work. Imagine placing within the top 50 of 186 students on midterms. Make that a reality, and securing a former teacher's permission is all an E-Class student needs to return to the class from which they were ejected.
Yeah, but see, that system itself is created in such a way that none of those teachers will actually give that permission because their manager will say don't do it. The system is literally built on a pyramid structure to keep the people on top. That's why the education system doesn't function and it's underfunded. Even here in Australia, throughout the Western world, you have public education and public hospital and public everything that is the most underfunded thing in the world. Meanwhile, literal private schools that have tennis courts and swimming pools get more funding than public schools that can't afford proper chairs and tables and books. It's all done to keep people in the upper echelon, which is why people from those private schools also get bonus credits when applying for universities. The system itself is built that way. And it's done intentionally. Look at democracy. Demos basically means the small vote on behalf or decide on behalf of the whole. Democracy is not about people deciding what happens. No, democracy is literally a small group of people deciding what happens to the larger. You're picking between politician A and politician B, being party A, party B. It's the illusion of choice. It's no different from the Matrix. You could pick A or B, but what happens when both paths lead to the same destination? It's the illusion of choice. There is no freedom in the equation. Oh, so what happens if you start your own political party and campaign against the two-party system? Well, one, you don't have the funding to do so because the party in power can use government funding, which your taxes come from, in order to advertise their own political campaign. Two, big companies donate hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars to the campaign of politicians that will enforce laws that are favorable to the corporations and the rich people, you know, keeping the people in power in power. And three, what happens to most people that try to stand against the system? They disappear, they get suicided, they get jailed, you know, shit like that. The system itself is a mode of economic enslavement. Hundreds of years ago, when you had slaves, you had to house them, you had to feed them, so you were incentivized to look after your slaves, because the only way to make them, you know, useful is to ensure that they're healthy, they're well fed, so they're strong, and, you know, they can have a good environment to work. With economic slavery, you don't have to house your slaves, you don't have to feed them, because, take a look at it this way, there's 100 jobs, but 1,000 people. The 1,000 people are fighting for those 100 jobs. So, if one person's not doing them, you kick out, there's another one willing to take his place. Work him to death, replace him. That's the current system we're working in. You think that's by accident? It's not. If you look at how the economic system works, banks themselves create money out of thin air. It's how the fractional reserve system works. You take $1, you put it in the bank, and you loan out $9. Wait a minute. So if there's only $1 in the bank and you loan out $9, how can everyone pay back the $9 they owe? That's the whole point. They can't. So they keep printing money into the system in order to keep the wheels turning. So the bank literally is lending out money to people that doesn't exist, who have to pay back the principal plus the interest over time. So they're working jobs they hate in order to pay back a loan which they used to buy something which was loaned to them by an organization that never had the money to begin with. And this is legal because there's something called the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, is not even a government controlled or owned organization. It's completely independent, which is owned by a private entity. A private entity which just so happens to own federal reserves throughout the entire planet and somehow controls the global money supply. So 97% of the world currency doesn't physically exist and is owned by a single entity owned by 3 families in the world. Almost sounds like a pyramid scheme. Homework. Look up the Rockefellers. Look up the Rothschilds, and look up all previous US presidents and how they're all connected via marriage. And then look up the British monarchy and how they're related to the US presidency. You will find some very interesting results. And then, for brownie points, look up Obamacare and who ended up buying a big share in that. Big hint, it's part of the British royal family. Anyway, let's continue, children.
But given the conditions we're forced to work under, the personal setbacks that landed each of you here are difficult to fix. That's why most E-Class students are convinced that returning to the main campus is no more than a pipe dream.
Don't tell me to hurry up. I'm not a child.
Sorry. Koro-sensei asked me to bring you.
Miss Yelovich,
huh?
I'd like your opinion as a professional assassin.
All right, what do you want to know?
Now let's say you've been given an assignment. Do you have only one plan going into it?
Course not. If my profession has taught me anything, it's that Plan A almost never comes off like you'd expect. There are just too many variables. A good assassin has backup plans on hand for any contingencies.
And Mr. Kurasama, what about you? When teaching knife combat strategies, do you believe the first strike is the only move of any importance?
The first move is important, but so's the follow-up. Never assume the first strike will hit. Because when your opponent's trained, you have to be ready to deliver the next strike with at least as much precision and skill as the first. Or better yet, carry a second blade.
I love how he's modifying the question based on what their sort of expertise is. She's an assassin, so he asks the question and phrases it in terms of assassination. He's a hand-to-hand combat expert. He phrases it according to hand-to-hand combat. And with these children, he phrases it in terms of joining the other classrooms. So he uses what they know and asks the question rather than standardizing the question and asking them the same one and then yelling at them for not understanding the question. You know, like how bad teachers usually do. I can recall a memory of when I was a kid here in Australia. I was about 8 years old. I didn't speak English. I was in the playground. I didn't know the rules because I believe it was my first week in an Australian school. And the teacher was yelling at me for something. I don't know what it was. I literally knew no fucking English. And the teacher was yelling at me. And then all I knew how to say was, I speak little English. And then she screamed at me. And then I'm just like, I speak little English. And then she screamed at me. And screamed at me. And then I'm like, yes, yes. And then after that I was in trouble for something. And in detention and all that. The system's absolutely fucked. Mind you, this was a public school out in the western suburbs, so it was completely underfunded. And the big majority of children there were basically the kids of migrants. So, you know, it was a rough area. But the point was, the teachers weren't helping the system one bit. I'm like, it's a fucking miracle I didn't grow up to be some sort of street hoodlum. Because God knows I had 1,000 excuses I could have used to blame on the world. Like, fuck me. You know? I could have justified it any number of ways. I mean, and I'll tell you what, even when you get out of the, you know, sort of rough socioeconomic environment that is the disadvantaged parts of any Western country. Mind you, exists in America, exists in England, throughout Europe. Like, it's completely fucked. We like to pretend like Western countries are the best in the world. We're fucked. We're absolutely fucked. Go to the poorest neighborhood in your country and you'll see what a fucking mess we are. We like to say that we're civilized and we're a developed country, yet we have starving people, homeless people. Like, we are fucked. We're in no position to be putting our noses up and thinking we're high and mighty. But that's a different story. And then you go to, say, you know, the more, I don't even want to say successful, because it's not relatively successful at all. It's like, say the more, I don't even want to say educated, because I consider them idiots. Say like you go to where people are, okay, fuck, I don't even want to say white collar jobs because it's so fucking stupid. Say you go to more corporate gigs, right? Where people are required to, at the very least, have a baseline education and have some form of formal training and do something, right? They behave very similar to that of kids in very rough areas. There's bullies, there's people that intimidate, there's people that use, there's people that blackmail, like all that shit. It's at a much lower level and it's not physical violence, but it's more emotional manipulation, intellectual manipulation, that sort of thing. And the most successful people I found are the ones without formal education that have actually had to work for it. You know, people that have actually grown up a bit hungry, so they have that drive to succeed. Not the people that grow up with a silver or gold spoon in their mouths, because those people are typically fucking useless, because they've never had to work for it. Mind you, someone that's grown up with opportunity and means, and actually has hunger and motivation, can achieve a hell of a lot more than someone that grew up with nothing, right? Like, that's a standard. You know, I'm putting a blanket rule here. But, fuck me. This anime is a great analogy for society. I am surprised this is not being studied in school, because it's a really good one. It just hit me now. I mean, all jokes aside, this anime speaks volume. I'm really curious to see what happens at the end of season 1. Fuck me. Yeah, that happened to me too. When I moved to my first English-speaking country, I remember my teachers would criticize and single me out every class because I couldn't understand what they were saying sometimes. Like, man, I just started learning English this year. Yeah, I actually memorized words. I couldn't read. I didn't know the alphabet. But if I couldn't spell out the words in the English test at the end of the week, I would get yelled at and sent to detention. So I learned to memorize how to write the words without knowing my ABCs. That's how fucked the education system is. And the teachers didn't notice. They didn't care. They didn't care that I couldn't read. They just wanted me to make sure that I could do the spelling test at the end of the week. That's how fucked it was. I'm so glad I decided to take the shot to suggest this anime for the vote. I'm enjoying your rants. This is bringing back a lot of memories from my upbringing. Alright, let's continue before I go on a tangent and we never get this episode done. It just brought up a lot of memories, guys. Like, fuck me.
If you have a point, sir, I think we're missing it.
Fuck.
Listen to your teachers, boys and girls. Backup plans are the cornerstone of confidence, and a confident assassin is a successful one. The same goes for life in general. You strive for assassination, but not academics? You've heard the old saying, right? Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Well, that's exactly what you're doing here! Now, suppose I left the classroom for good. Suppose some other would-be assassin out there managed to do me in. What would you be left with? What would you strive for then? Or are you satisfied with being outcast? A word of advice from your Koro-sensei. You walk a fine line. Those who can't wield a second blade aren't qualified to be assassins!
What the? Holy crap, guys, check it out! Is that a tornado?
What a show-off.
There. Our schoolyard needed a good leveling, not to mention a few weeds cleared. I am a superior life form capable of destroying the Earth. As you can see, flattening out this little corner of it was a cinch. Cast your nets wide. Show me your backup plan, that crucial second blade. Otherwise, I'll be forced to conclude no would-be assassin here is worthy of me. And I won't have just a mind to leave. I'll flatten this entire campus as I go.
A second blade? So how long have we got?
Not very. Until the end of tomorrow. The midterms are upon us, class. I want all of you to place in the top 50. Whether you realize it or not, we've been sharpening those second blades all along. The main campus relies on dull rote learning methods. I, to put it mildly, do not. You have what it takes, so wield those blades with confidence. Take your midterms by the gills, smiling, your heads held high. Be proud, be bold, and never forget, you are assassins. You are E-Class.
Okay. Ready or not, here we go.
I don't think that realizes, but he's taking Sun Tzu's principle of death's ground and utilizing it. So he's putting them in a situation where they either perform or die. And in such a situation, people tend to outperform what they normally do because the survival instinct kicks in. Clever. Which is why if you're ever surrounding an enemy, you should always leave an outlet of escape. Half of them will typically try to flee. Whether or not that escape route is safe is another question altogether. A few well-placed snipers and you just mow them down like Swiss cheese. But anyway, enough of that. What is he doing? You see, that's an old interrogation technique. You just basically tap your finger on the table. It breaks your concentration. It really just breaks your concentration. So if you're ever getting interrogated by cops, literally just keep doing that to yourself. It also helps you count. You just go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you get bored, count in different languages. Ich, ni, san, shi. If you're feeling confident, count backwards.
Midterms are administered on the main campus, even for us. Basically, to E-Class, they're just an away game. Not much else. expected this. The midterms they give in this school have always been a beast. Damn it! You're kidding me! I don't even know where to start! This question's gonna eat me alive! I'm dead meat.
Did you really mean that crap? You're gonna take off if they don't all place in the top 50 on their stupid midterms?
That's right.
Well, way to be unrealistic.
Masayama did the same thing in the the first World Kyokushin tournament. He basically said if Japan doesn't win, he's gonna slice his own stomach open like a samurai. You bet your ass the Japanese won.
These kids have the worst grade point average in the entire school. Are you nuts?
I wonder sometimes. Either way, wherever they've ranked before, they're my students now. When backed into a corner, the first order of business is assessing your options. If I've taught them nothing else, I've certainly taught them that. Come now, we've covered this. The poor beast isn't as terrifying as all that. Start by observing that fin. On closer inspection, it's just that, a fin. Next, look over each part of the question with the same attention to detail and piece together what you find. Voila! A trivial adversary indeed. Now use that trusty blade to fillet it.
Of course. Take the problem one part at a time. That's the trick. Just like Koro-sensei's been teaching us all along. This question is dead meat. So this one, and this one, and this! And all of a sudden, poised to strike, a question we weren't ready for ambushed us from the rear.
Not to rock the boat, but this is ridiculous. You gotta help me out here. However I look at it, this test seems rigged.
I don't know what to say, sir. You ought to have received proper notification. Perhaps there was some sort of communications flap on your end. But there's no point in coming to the main campus. I can tell you that.
The communications flap wasn't on our end, buddy. Besides, what constitutes proper notification? 2 days before midterms, you decide to broaden the scope, and that's supposed to be enough time for us to cover everything?
With all due respect, Mr. Karasama, is it? You don't understand. We're a prep school.
This sort of thing happens all the time. Our students are expected to cram. That's been our policy for years. In fact, when it was decided to include new material on this midterm, the principal himself lectured our students on those subjects personally. It was wonderful. You should have seen it.
Unbelievable. Is there nothing this man won't resort to in the name of his own ideals? They've put us in a hell of a spot. If Koro-sensei leaves, we're screwed. We lose everything.
I take full responsibility. Clearly, I underestimated the school's dedication to the status quo. Forgive me if I can't bear to face you.
That is a very Sun Tzu thing first. Like, the commander always takes ultimate responsibility for the performance of his soldiers.
Yeah! Have it your way. Keep your back turned if you want. Just makes it easier for us to sneak up on you.
I am in no mood, Karma. This whole situation has me very
So they added questions to the stupid test. Big deal.
Seriously?
Hold the phone. You got 100 in math? Your method worked like a charm, Teach. You gave us everything you had, and at the moment of truth, it mattered. So what if the midterms decided to cover new territory? I was ready. Don't worry, though. I'm not going anywhere. You see, this is where I belong. Normal class has nothing on assassination. So, where are you gonna go, huh? Where do you belong? You plan on using the fact we didn't all make the top 50 as an excuse to tuck your tail and run? 'Cause you're not fooling me. I think you're just scared that one of us is actually gonna kill you.
You could have just told us. Not like we'd blame you for being afraid.
Next time, consider being more straightforward with how you
Even
feel.
if how you feel is all, oh no, I want to run away.
No one is running away!
Okay, so what's the deal?
The deal is we get our revenge on this school twofold during finals.
Children, this is no laughing matter!
There's no denying we hit a wall on our midterms. The same wall that's always closed us off from everyone else. But for once, I'm kind of glad to be behind it. Not just glad, proud. Proud to be an E-class.
Nobody puts E-class in the corner!
You know what's beautiful about this? They learnt an amazing lesson in that they gave it hell and they got fucked over. But here's the beautiful thing. They lost absolutely nothing. They have absolutely nothing to lose because no one believes they can do it. Whereas if they do it, they have all to gain. It puts it in perspective. That in itself is an important lesson. Failure is inevitable. If you've never failed, you've obviously never tested yourself. Now, there's a saying that I really like. The master has failed more times than the student has tried. It's all XP. You're joking. You are fucked. Them legs. I like this anime. I really like this anime. It brings so much discussion to the table. I'm really glad that the whole discussion regarding the education system came out in this episode because it is very dense. It is very heavy. And I'm glad that I didn't really feed it into the other episodes because the other ones so far have been really fun, whereas this one was very dense and very real. But it is the type of conversations that I really enjoy having with you guys. And I'm really happy that there's enough maturity in the community that we can actually talk about real life without, you know, people screeching and hitting the screen. That being said, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. But this is just fucked. And the hair looks like... I swear there's a girl with green hair like that. I swear I've seen a girl with green hair like that. We'll probably see it in the next opening. If you haven't noticed, those end screen hits at something to come in the next episode. And the girl is Kaid. You really shouldn't be pointing out stuff like that. Now I'm going to be hyper-analyzing.
Hey, did I hand you a shrinking potion by accident? I could have sworn that was the gender-swapping one.
Don't be hating. She's fun-sized, that's all. She doesn't even have to get on her knees to blow.
You want to add anything to that conversation?
Nope, I'm good. In fact, I think your new size makes you an even more formidable and stealthy ninja.